Bill?
Okay.
Yes.
What John's saying, and what you're trying to say is that I'm just trying to get in my head. With Route 10 highway business, you get three or four more businesses on Route 10 on the Northampton area. It's going to get chewed up. So does this mean that you're considering East Street and Main Street, South Main Street, as a possible another Route 10 highway business corridor?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the feeling was East Street was not, wasn't conducive for that kind of use,
Right,
number one. But the South Main Street may be, and that's all we're suggesting in this thing in here. And it would have to be vetted with the planning board as to the pros and cons, and go through the same, public hearing process. If the planning board feels that it's kind of worth it and they want to kind of expand that highway business district use. That's all we're kind of saying, that maybe that's a logical place to at least explore.
The potential is there.
Yeah.
But on East Street, it's the opposite, it was to
Right.
eliminate it.
Yeah. I mean, given the nature, that's a
brought
nice...
up, and it just confused me just saying, why would you consider even saying East
I mean,
Street?
East Street, Chad, is kind of like a nice little village center.
Right.
And there's a kind of a scale, somewhat of a scale there that's kind of in the residential scale and everything else. And maybe that should be kept down there. I mean, we call it Mount Tom Junction. Is that it a little bit, and has some nostalgia to it and everything else, and we've got the bike path that kind of goes down through there now, yada yada, so, again, that's, some thinking that we had, that's all. John?
Yes.
Next.
Yeah, next.
We're on page 4. You sleeping over there, Eddie, or you getting ready?
No, he's
I'm
doing
listening
good.
and I'm captured.
Okay, I'm good with page 4.
Page 4.
Yeah, most of this stuff that we had hashed out at the October meeting and everything else.
Well, let's find out what you're not good with then.
Okay, let's see here.
What page are you on and
He's
which
not anywhere yet.
section?
Now, we already, here's my curiosity.
Are we on page 5?
No, I think we're on page 6 now.
Oh.
We're flying through this.
Well, we're fine.
Under parking standards?
Under parking, we had some problems with parking in front. And this, actually, the problems we had with the parking issue were resolved by the city council. Okay, and they said you can't park in the 30-foot front setback, basically, is what they said. Is that correct, David?
I think it was 40, but anyway. Regardless.
Whichever.
Well, highway business is 30.
Okay, it was 30,
It's 30.
okay.
The front setback in the highway
Okay.
is 30. Right, Jessica?
Now, we're getting back to the same parking in the side and the rear.
John, we already discussed this this was already hashed out and reviewed and discussed and changed before the October 2nd meeting, and this is still what was decided up to that point.
I mean, we're still, parking
Since you're
can be allowed in front of the building, but not in the front yard. There's a difference.
So parking can be allowed in front.
I don't think that that's excluded here.
There's flexibility,
Right.
so that, where does it say that?
It says here, should be located to the side or rear of any building.
Newly constructed.
Yeah, newly constructed buildings, side or rear. We went through that, and people don't, when people go shopping at night, they don't want to shop behind buildings. Over in Northampton, I paid $3 million for the Honda building in Northampton. They bankrupted him because he couldn't develop it, because he couldn't get any developer. Yes.
Parking may be allowed to the forward of the building as part of site plan review, provided that all applicable landscaping and screening standards are met. So it's encouraged to put the parking around the
But John,
side.
also, you gotta take a step back. At the top, it says, no changes recommended. So that is for the part that exists now. Now we're working down, the additional language is on, in the front yard setback, if there's a hardship.
Okay.
Yeah, now, we're also suggesting that, I mean, John, you know what my profession is, okay, as a landscape architect.
Yes.
And I deal with this stuff on a daily basis.
Correct.
Site design and site development. And, you know, I go through this in kind of, you know, working with site designs all the time, is that, you know, what's been acceptable and a desirable approach to doing commercial developments is to try to accomplish a site design that's sensitive to the corridors by locating it to the sides of the building. I didn't say anything about the back of the buildings, although, you know, there's in some cases that could be applicable. But, you know, we have discussions about this, that, you know, parking lots don't necessarily carry on any kind of great character in terms of the site development. Buildings, you know, if they're interesting and everything else, have character to them and everything else. So why have parking in the front that's gonna, you know, hide that and encumber, you know, the aesthetics of a nice looking building, nice looking building? And it's all it's suggesting is that, you know, that's a more desirable approach. It's not the end all be all, but it is a desirable approach to try to not make the parking the dominant thing. Now, I know, you know, shopping malls and get Hillendale, you know, they fought tooth and nail over that whole thing to have the parking, you know, where it is and everything else. So it's only just kind of like, again, suggestions, Sean.
Okay. Now, are you just suggesting here this trip reduction plan, or are you pushing for that?
Wait, what page are you on?
Okay, I'm on page 7.
Where's that? Trip reduction is at the end. Oh, okay.
But, John,
This is the current
This is the
zoning.
current zoning.
That's the way the current zoning
the
reads.
recommendation it says no changes recommended.
It says here, this is the current zoning.
Right.
Well, I think it's the current zoning for general business. I'm not quite sure it's the current zoning for highway business. Jessica?
I believe it is for highway business. I think it's in the highway business standard.
Yes. That's in section 10.
So my question to you is, do you have a recommended change? This report says no changes recommended.
Yes, I have a recommended change to remove it.
Didn't state that.
I have that. Thank you. Yeah, you know, if you don't want so many people there, put in less parking spaces. You know, I don't understand why you would do a traffic reduction plan on a new project. I can't get that through my head. If you want less parking, you know, less people there.
Well,
No, that's not what it's about.
No, that's not what it's about. No. It's about making the project friendly to people who might want to walk there or have a bus stop
I'm all
there.
for that. I'm all for that.
Put a place,
I'm all for that.
have bike rack.
But John, you misunderstand.
So that's all
What this does for
that's
you
talking
is if you
about.
have a site, just say for example, the current zoning requires 50 spaces. But when you do your buffers in your building, you can only come up with 45 spaces. This is an option to get approval for 45 spaces if you do this trip reduction plan. It's not asking you to do a trip reduction plan. It's if you're coming up short as a developer, you have possibly a chance to not put in the required parking. Because you're right.
that's a good point, Dave, yes. And that's what it's geared toward, is providing alternatives to, you know, for clientele or customers to get to this destination other than bringing their car, okay, and adding to massive, you know, parking areas. That you have this option, this flexibility, saying, well, look, you know, again, what Dave is saying is that, you know, providing the bus stop so that other people could get there instead of bringing a car, you know, could weigh in on your whole plan.
So right now you have two options. If you can't produce the required parking You can either not do the project or downscale your size of your building. This is giving you a third option to maybe keep the size of your building and make it
Put in
work.
some bike racks.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, we're on page 8 now.
I want to make the overtime period.
Possibly will be one.
Doesn't start, o'clock?
Yeah. That's my, yeah.
John, rather than, I'm making an executive decision here, rather than just, can I just open it up to see if there's anybody else, any other committee
Sure,
members that
sure.
got any issues too? Let's get a little more dialogue going with some of the other.
Hey, let John go, he's doing a good job, he's touching everything.
Okay.
How about you,
All right,
Eddie?
fine, I'm just asking. I'm asking. Ed,
Eddie, do you have anything you want to add?
Mr. Fedor?
Do you?
Come on, Chad. Open dialogue.
John's doing very good, and then we can interject in there if there's another possibility of us saying something. But he's doing a good job.
If everybody's happy with that, then that's fine.
Yeah, let him fight it out.
Let him fight it out.
He's doing it.
Little did I know, right?
Yes.
Always listen to my seniors.
What page are we on?
That's my son.
Still going. Keep going.
Okay, well, let's see here.
16.
Now, are we still on recommendations?
At a glance, we're on at a glance.
Your production plan.
No, page 16.
Yep.
Page 16.
Okay, it says, let's see, come on. It says here on page 16, this is where I got this from Jessica. It's the second column down the bottom. Trip reduction requirements for development in the highway business district should be included in the highway business section of the zoning ordinance.
To apply to projects within that district. It continues on the next page.
Right, I think what, John, what that was getting at, and we had a little bit of discussion about it, and this has to be carried through, with the planning board and everything else. There was some discussion about, well, if we want regulations to apply to a specific district, they should be in that section, all of them. Whether it's design guidelines for the parking, design guidelines for the building, it should be all under that section instead of different sections throughout the ordinance or anything else where, a developer has to go and try to find everything. So there was a desire to kind of streamline, where a developer or an owner of a piece of land would have to go to kind of, address all the regulations, all the requirements under the sun, or that were in the ordinance, to consolidate them as, as required in the highway business district. And that was wrong. So rather than having a separate section, they should go in the highway business district section as well, okay? Right, Suzanne, is that the way?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Well said. Does that take us through the at a glance section? Does anybody else have anything about it? About that one section?
Yeah. It's pretty much what you remembered from October?
Well, not that I remember anything.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. Can we move on to the planning process?
Wait.
But we're further.
Okay. I'm on page 13 where it says, address line of sight issues associated with placement of landscaping and screening features, but it's just very vague there.
Yeah, it is. This was a big thing with you.
Yes.
I remember that. This was a big thing with her. And So, without getting into super specifics and legislation and everything else, it's an issue that we think the planning board should address for site distance. Because getting into specifics about it would be just a whole nother, can of worms and everything else. So that's why we kind of left it as generic this day. But it was worth putting in here and keeping in here, not getting lost.
Do you have a recommendation? Some other wording?
Well, see, I was noticing how specific things were about plantings of 2 feet and 4 feet and so on and so forth.
That's in the current zoning, right?
Yes, that's in the
Right.
current zone, yes,
Right.
that's,
Right. Well, yeah, and admittedly, in the recommendation, we are just trying to be, generic but at least keep the thought there. But if you're
because my issue with it is, okay, you want landscaping and screening and make things look pretty and so forth, but if you have shrubs, let's say, right against an entrance or an egress from a piece of property, and it's up high enough that it blocks someone's line of sight,
Right.
then
But
It's a safety
but
issue.
that, yeah, it is, but you reference Appendix E, correct? Where we do have,
well, yeah,
we
yeah,
will talk about
But that's-
things 8 feet clear of the
Right.
rear of the sidewalk.
yeah, and they relate to specific shade tree plantings, not landscaping per se, but,
Okay, I misunderstood. Because I'm seeing an 8-foot setback from an edge,
right.
therefore that gives you a line of sight when you're entering or leaving.
Yeah.
because, like, I know there have been times when, like, I've been trying to get out of, say, CVS's parking lot or out of Golden Nozzles, and it could be with shrubbery, or it could be with sandwich board signs that are there, that are on the berms that were allowed for the plantings, that I just can't see around them.
So
So
again,
that's where,
yeah, so that should be addressed. I mean, sometimes that those kind of issues get reviewed by the planning department, as do, the site plans and the application and everything else. And even the city engineer gets involved in reviewing the plans. And, typically they do go through and look at, sightline issues and everything else, so. The sandwich boards are another issue. I mean, that's a temporary thing, and if they're put out there, helter-skelter, then that's something else that the building inspector kind of gets involved in and everything else. But plantings, which are kind of permanent,
yeah.
plantings which are permanent, then, that's something, we can,
Yeah, well, at times it's been from sandwich boards, at other times it's been
Okay.
plantings that I've
again, do you have any, do you want to add anything to this, I don't know, even though it's a little vague in here, do you want to add something into it, just as add some more teeth into it, so to speak, if you want, right now, or?
Well, like, I know I drive a small car, a low riding car, and I would say anything that's going to be right next to a driveway shouldn't be more than 3 feet tall.
Bill, I think
Period.
let's solve it all here. You've
Shouldn't
got
be
to-
more than 3, or shall I say, shouldn't be more than 3 feet above the grade of the driveway itself.
I think where you want to go here, look on your schematics over the plantings. It says 5-foot green area. If you made that green area, say 8 feet wide, which works out better for snow plowing, and don't get on the sidewalk, make the sidewalk 7 feet wide, get the tree line at 24 feet off the road,
Well,
and nothing forward of the tree line.
yeah,
No plantings forward of the tree line. That will give you a full sight line down your sidewalk and down everything.
so I'll make a note, no plantings forward of the tree line plantings.
Yeah, that simplifies it.
Now, Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there is some requirement in the zoning ordinance right now that you keep a 25 feet from the center line of the street in either direction, and that's connected with the hypotenuse of the triangle, so to speak, of a site distance that has to be cleared. I've been involved with that on a couple of occasions. So there is some prescribed distances within the zoning ordinances for site distance at intersections. This refers strictly to plantings. I think we could add kind of a maximum height type of thing, Suzanne, say 2.5 feet above, so we're accounting for the 6-inch curb height typically. Okay, so the planting would be 2.5 from the grade which is planted, which would be at the top of the curb.
How far back?
And also, note that plantings are restricted forward of the street shade tree plantings.
Yeah, put
Is that
that in there.
Yeah, that's acceptable to her.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
And no plantings that collect rubbish, if at all possible. The papers blow, you can't get them out.
I say that's a maintenance issue.
That's a maintenance. Okay. That's your problem.
The owner's maintenance responsibility.
Okay.
Okay, so we were from 13, where were we on the planning process?
I think so.
18? If nothing, I mean, findings were pretty much thought out at our October meeting. We did, Suzanne and I did a little bit of tweaking and a couple of things, but basically that was kind of all hashed out. Any more issues with that?
It's really, I just wanted to
Sure.
add that, just to refresh people, if people forget. This section, planning process, was really meant to give the retrospective from when we started, why
Oh,
we
man.
started, how it was
Boy, did I have to
revised
rack my
initially.
brain
Yeah.
for this.
So
This
that's the
was going
page
back a long
18.
time ago.
And then the 19, page 19, gives some specific steps along the way of that. So I don't know if anybody has any
I just,
changes or additions.
with all due respect to the rest of the committee, I just had to put something in here that kind of reminded us where we came from. Because it has been a long time. So, I mean, if there's anything, if anybody feels there's a discrepancy in there, or they don't agree with it, I'd appreciate the input.
Or if something's missing, it's significant.
Anything in the recommendations? Again, you know, I just want to say that, you know, they're very general, they're kind of things that the planning board could take up and discuss.
You skipped findings.
Well, no, he mentioned it, but no one jumped.
Right.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
oh, you did? I thought we were on the planning process still.
Well, you went back to
Oh,
it for a minute.
I'm sorry.
You're not gonna revise your issue.
I'm sorry. So we've
I
already...
mentioned the fact that we pretty much hashed out all the findings and
Oh,
way
I'm
back
sorry.
when, remember that?
Yes,
But, you know,
Bless you.
if there aren't any other issues, we'll kind of go on to the recommendations, because that's something that Suzanne, you and I kind of put together
Win the lottery.
on this thing,
I
so.
apologize for my...
Yeah. I'm with you.
All right. I just had a question on number 2 of the recommendations. I feel like it's sort of, that sentence just kind of hangs, so it doesn't talk, safeguards from what, or for what, or, you know, it doesn't feel like it's a complete sentence or thought, or...
Any suggestions?
Well, I'm open to suggestions, people. This is a committee process in here, you know, like I say, we...
Zoning requirements. I don't have a suggestion right at the moment, but...
Okay. Next page.
How about guidelines or something instead?
Well, what's missing is the other half. I mean, safeguards implies that you're loosening something up. And it doesn't really say, it should say something like, zoning requirements should have the goal of, that's kind of problematic, but it should be simple and straightforward is what they're trying to say without compromising the public or the community.
What if you talked about making, streamlining the permitting process for clear regulations that can be followed by both developers and city boards and departments, something like that? Because that's what you're essentially getting at, right?
Don't I say that somewhere? Oh, no, we're in a different section.
Can you say that again?
Yes, right. Slow down.
I don't know what I said.
See, Jessica, you're a planner here, so you gotta help us.
Well, I think it's more like, I think it's a little more basic than streamlining.
Is it?
Well, no, maybe not, but zoning requirements should be clear and concise so that the planning board and businesses, it's a defined process. It shouldn't be one of jumping around different sections or...
Hard to interpret.
Yeah, interpretations and vagaries without compromising the safeguards.
To be clear, concise, and organized.
Oh, very good.
All right, well, if those are the key words, we can kind of somehow figure out how to interject that in there, right, Suzanne?
Yeah, we'll work on that.
If everybody's happy with those, you know, that wording. You know, I think appropriate, I mean, we maybe strike those 2 words altogether. Well, I mean, it's
What tool?
appropriate safeguards, if we can.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but I'll just cloud it with a question mark on it. All right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it sounded good, but then I was like,
Well, you know, it was another issue where we're just trying to be
oh, yeah, yeah.
generic,
Oh, no,
you
I
know,
know,
and
I
everything
know,
else.
I know. You guys did a great job.
Anything else on recommendations?
So I can just throw it out. I mean, you know, the appendices again were put together. It was something, you know, I'm a visual person. Like, you know, I did a lot of the graphics and everything else just to kind of add some ambiance, so to speak, to the report. But you know, does anybody have any issues other than the maps? I know everybody has issues with the maps, but that's a systemic issue, a problem, and something that, you know, needs to be addressed. You know, we can kind of address it right now.
May I add
Anything
something
else?
to Appendix D, which is the list of committee members? I believe there are, this is before my time, but I believe there are members that sat on this committee that are no longer sitting here, as you mentioned in the executive summary. And I just want
Oh.
to make sure that those members, even though they're not still here, are still mentioned in this list because they were here at the beginning of the process. You had mentioned in the executive summary that there was some loss in some of the membership.
They officially
Can we call
stepped
them
away.
past members?
I think you can call them past members. I think it's
Okay,
just
give me
worth-
some names.
I don't know who they were.
Well,
we'll have to look at the
I know
back.
Clay Crow was one of them.
Clay Crow.
Remember Clay Crow?
Clay Crow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Stuart?
I think that's
Stewart, yeah.
And I'm sure that there's others. We can figure out what the names are, but I just...
Well, and,
Really?
You think there were others besides those three?
Yeah, Ron Shadwell was on the board
Oh,
originally.
that's true.
Right.
He was not on this?
Then
Yes,
wasn't it because,
Councilor Burns was on the committee at one time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She was there, yeah.
You don't have to do
All right,
it.
is that-
Again, this
is
is a
that the-
recommendation, but you've been in committee for 3
I think
years, and
it's a
there's
good
been other
idea.
members that sat on this and participated and was part of the dialogue that got you to this final step. I think it's just worth mentioning the names in the back of the...
so what would we do, in just a paragraph at
No,
the
just
bottom or
list,
something?
no, I had it.
Just put it as past members and then
List
names.
them. You
Past
don't need,
members.
you don't need email.
In the
Yeah.
master plan, when we had people who stepped out from the master plan, we still put them in the beginning of the document.
Right.
Who else? Did you say Ron Shadow?
Yeah,
Andrea Burns.
Andrea Burns.
But was he on this
I-
He
subcommittee?
came,
Suzanne.
he came to a few meetings, yes.
Suzanne, I
How
have
do
a
you
whole, I've got old lists
Okay.
in my notebook. I can get you all
Yeah,
those.
there were a few others from the planning board, too.
Would Ron and Andrea, were they associate members also?
We didn't even.
No,
No, they weren't on the planning board.
There was no such thing as an associate member when we first started this.
No, they were all members. They were full members.
So
The
they were
only ones that were considered associate members is when it was brought up that planning board
Okay.
members were member of
Right.
the committee, which is going to be brought back down to the planning board.
So I got Clay-
Those members are associate
Yeah, so we had to
members.
I
quit.
got Clay, Stewart, Ron, and Andrea,
And Parizeau.
And Karen.
and Parizeau. Yeah, right. That's,
The lady was Southampton too, I can't think of her name. She was on the planning board at the time. She
Yeah.
founded it with Ann Parizzo. I can't think of her name right now.
Debbie? Debbie? Is that?
Yeah, Debbie. Debbie,
Yeah.
I can't think of her last name.
Yeah,
What's her
She-
last name?
I'm not sure.
She started the whole thing, her and Ann Parizzo and Stewart.
All
oh,
right, you'll figure this out.
Deb Hamill.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah, Deb Hamill.
yeah.
Hamel?
Very good.
Very good there, Mr. Boyle.
Okay,
yeah, I remember.
good point, Jess, I think.
Okay. So, appendix D,
So that's-
you know, all the other appendixes are there for information, not necessarily the end-all, be-all. You know, I can kind of see just from my own personal perspective, the suggested, that the plant list that's in here could be expanded upon and offered some other varieties too, but those were the basic ones that I kind of collaborated with the tree warden on, that he would like to kind of see as part of the so-called green structure of the city.
I just have one little editing thing for appendix E, C,
Yeah.
line C, just needs an and inserted between the strong single
Yeah.
leader stem and be symmetrical and canopy.
Gotcha.
There's also a slight typo on the cover page.
On the cover,
Just a slight one.
Where is it?
Underneath it says
Oh,
submitted by the city of Easthampton by the highway business is spelled wrong.
Business
You
is
was-
spelled wrong,
You
Mr.
was-
Cannon. Whoa.
Yeah,
So
it's not good.
procedurally, how do we want to move forward?
that's distressing.
Wait, I have one
You know how much work it was to get this, to do this cover?
for that piece.
And for that.
I had to pay somebody an hourly rate to put this thing together.
Appendix G,
Oh, we're still doing?
sorry. Under, okay, so principal uses, retail.
This one, just by the way, Wolf, this one we had vetted at the, if everybody recalls, at the last meeting in October too.
Yes, I'm just thinking that do we need to add, if you, I don't know, to me, okay, the first two sections talk about use occupies 4,000 square feet or less at ground level, or is, no wait, let's see. Additionally, the use is not considered a significant traffic generator, blah, blah, blah. The same thing for the second one. Use occupies 10,000 square feet, same. Additionally, the use is not considered a significant traffic generator. Okay, then you go down to use occupies over 10,000 square feet at ground level, which doesn't need to say or is a significant traffic generator, because both those things had to exist for the first two
Yes.
in order to be administrative.
I mean, that's what it's
site plan.
implying.
It's implying, but if I were reading it,
I'm interpreting that, I'm looking at this and saying any building that's over 10,000 square feet, this goes through a special permit.
Yeah, you can't imply it.
It's not implied to me.
It has to be,
Right.
you have to take it literally, so you have to add that language.
Right.
So that whole sentence, additionally, the use, is that what you're
well,
saying?
no, or is a significant traffic generator.
Oh, okay.
But does it matter if it's going through a special permit? I mean, I guess that's,
Well, but, okay, so if it's 4,000, yeah, I don't know, I guess it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's
Implied.
4,000 square feet and it's not a high trip generator, it goes through administrative approval.
Okay,
If
so if
it's
it's
10,000 square
4,000,
feet or less, but more than 4,000, and it doesn't have a high trip generation, it's plan approval. No matter,
okay.
it doesn't matter. If it's
Yeah, you're
10,000
right.
square feet, it's a special permit, doesn't matter. The trip generation doesn't matter, according to...
No, I know, but for the previous two, it does matter.
The question, I guess, for me is, what if it is a high trip generation? Then what?
Then it has to do.
Say it's a 10,000, say it's a 4,000 square foot drive-through. And I guess, again, this is all gonna get vetted through planning board, this is just an example, but if it is 4,000 square feet and it's a high trip generation, what's their permit?
Right, that's why I'm saying, we have, don't you, so when you
But-
add that, wouldn't that be a special permit?
That's a special,
It is a special permit? See main tables for
If-
S and C.
I mean, this is suggesting it's a plan approval. Other than that, it's a special permit.
I see, okay, well, that's not, where is that listed then? Somewhere.
It's not.
Yeah.
So whether there's just
So you
an
have to add
asterisk, if there's just a line somewhere that says, I don't know how you figure it, but right now, it's not clear what the permitting process is for something that's a 4,000 square foot building that's a high trip
Yeah,
generation.
exactly.
And what that permitting process is. Where am I supposed to send that applicant?
Yeah, okay.
I get, that's the point.
We can't solve everything.
I know you can't, and so, again, that's not, as you said, that's not the point of this committee to figure out all these details, this is just an example. So, you...
Well, we're assuming, I mean, you know, the fallback position to something that's requiring a straight, you know, a simplified site plan approval, if it's a high traffic generator, then it needs to have some more scrutiny under a special permit process.
Special permit, so
It's gotta be somewhere.
Well, if I add a
Well, it is
line...
now, isn't it?
No, if I add a line here,
No,
it
I mean,
says,
it's in the zoning.
It's just by use.
Yeah, it's by you.
It's by use and zone. Doesn't matter if it's a high trip generator or not. I mean, theoretically, the idea is that the use is a high trip generator, so if you have a drive-through, you know it's a high trip generator because the traffic index says that it is, so you're gonna have it as a
all
special
right, so a
permit.
different line.
Jessica, I think it's in
Any
the
use that
Table of
is a high
uses
traffic
here.
generator. High blah, blah, blah. Certificate.
drive-through, restaurant, drive-through, anything requires special permit planning board. But that would be high intensity, even if it's less than 4,000.
But where, in this, I mean, the idea is that this is replacing the existing table of uses, correct? I just wanna make sure I'm understanding.
yeah, and I can
Okay.
add that in here. I can make another line under retail and say if it's 4,000, under 4,000, up to 10,000, and is a high traffic generator, SPB.
Yeah, okay. Is this, okay,
Yeah.
so you can add those in. So
Yep.
this use table was
Or
Suzanne's
you can
page
just
right
write
here, you know?
sample across the side, you know.
Well, yeah,
You-
because the point of this table though was, because there was also the discussion, is highway business gonna have its own section that's all inclusive?
Yes.
Right, which we all wanted, and we started working towards this. And then there's some people, like Ron Shatner, you know, in the stick in the mud, said, we have to look at all the zoning at once. And then once you get into that, it's all bets are off.
Right.
And so I guess what we're trying to say is we want to make highway business its own section.
Right.
So anybody can look at it and reasonably figure out what's going on.
Okay.
And we were also trying to simplify it so it didn't have all these specific things like beauty parlors and,
Which is great.
so everything's clumped either under retail vehicle services and all these other categories, so it's concise, compact,
Absolutely.
clear.
So the easy thing to do would just be a watermark that says sample across it, and then you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty details of some
Well,
of these, or you can do
Well,
what
it's
you
more,
I think
it's
we'll
more than a
address it.
sample, it's
Yeah, we're
like,
not gonna,
here's what we came up with for you.
Jessica, we've gotten too far, and this isn't fairly detailed, that, adding a couple of lines onto it and everything else, it would be appropriate.
Okay. I want to make it easy for you, so.
Yeah, that would-
Nothing's easy anyway. Come on, Jessica.
Would a troublesome in any high traffic generating use
What?
would require SPV? Because in theory, any high, a significant traffic generator based on ITE manual is subject to special permit.
Yeah, I can do the language on this table, yeah. I've got the- Yeah, no, that's fair, we'll do that.
I know.
I think we got the idea.
They'll
We got the idea.
I think it's
Yeah.
finally implemented. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Thanks. I agree.
Okay, I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
That's easy.
I'm a little disappointed that business was spelled wrong right on the front page.
Yeah, we're gonna slap you.
None of us
They're
did
fine.
on it.
It was 7:30 and we got through the whole
So,
document.
Bill,
Yes.
what's the, are we gonna, meet again and go over and basically proofread the revisions? Or are we gonna vote to let you guys do it and then submit it?
What's the committee's pleasure? I think that what we're asking for in terms of revisions are pretty simple and straightforward. So should we just correct them?
Why don't we review it right after? Maybe we got some more ideas as we look at it longer.
Okay. If
One
that's
more
the-
time.
That's a
That's
consensus.
fine, I'm just asking, I mean, it's kind of...
So what we should do is schedule another meeting to review the final draft.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's a good idea.
And then, but we need a little bit of time to try to, I get some issues, technical issues I gotta kind of work out with reworking some of this stuff.
You got 2
When
weeks.
you've added your revisions,
What?
You got 2 weeks to 6 months.
when you've added your revisions, I'd like to put this up on the planning department website, so
Well, can you if it's not official?
you can put draft on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just put draft on the front cover. I mean, if you want, or not.
At what point?
You can do that.
I
At
don't
what
know.
point?
If there's members of the public that want access to it and they're here, I think it's worth putting on the website. If
Just
somebody
put it on the
wants.
website.
Well, okay,
Planning
but
website.
we should make these,
That's what I'm saying. Once you've
Corrections,
made your
and then
corrections,
put it
send me
out.
the
and
next-
have a meeting to kind of accept everything, and then, well,
Okay, it's up to you. That's fine too.
well, okay,
Either way.
but it's been suggested that, there might be a little bit more thought that needs to be kind of discussed and everything else, which may generate another revision or something like that, so I'm not, I don't,
Either
I
way.
would rather put up the one that everybody agrees is the final
Okay,
one
that's
that's
fine.
going to go to the
Yeah,
planning board.
so-
Okay, that's fine.
when that is, I don't know, Jessica.
Okay.
You'll have it anyway,
But-
just as everybody else does.
All I can say is that Suzanne and I can kind of work diligently to make these corrections as soon as possible. And then we'll try to schedule another meeting, or do we want to schedule
Let's
one
do
right
it
now?
now.
You
Yeah,
want it?
let's do it
Oh,
now.
you're putting the gun to her head now.
Yeah, let's do it. I want to get this done. 2 weeks from tonight?
That's what I suggested.
Oh, did you already say that, Chet?
Yeah.
Is it Wednesday okay? Wednesday nights are okay?
2 weeks? Wait a minute, wait.
Oh, you need more time?
Figure the...
2 weeks is July 3rd, so...
Oh, yeah, forget it.
No. 3 weeks then.
He's gonna do it.
Well, my problem, I'm on vacation the 8th, the second week in July. So that's exactly what we wanted to try to avoid here. So we wanted to get through this.
How about next week?
Thanks, Chad.
Can I come to your office and do these changes? Because I can
No,
do
you
that.
can't. You can't touch them.
Boy, you
No.
really...
Some of these Photoshop things, Tim's got to do them, because he's already into the program, and some of them, you know, we had to kind of reinvent the wheel on some of the stuff, because we lost it, and we had to kind of recreate it.
He's only talking about the language.
Huh?
He's only talking about the language.
Yeah, I'll,
Yeah, the text things.
if, I don't have a computer for you in my office.
Just don't touch nothing.
Well, how about July 24th?
That's not working with you, to put it off until that late, right?
I'm anxious to get to the end point.
Well, okay, so 26th and the 3rd of July,
Or the 2nd of July?
or the 2nd of July.
Is there any planning board meeting or anything?
No, they're not until the 9th. I won't be here, but don't worry about it.
2nd of July, I guess, is good.
It's a Tuesday,
It's good.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
So we'll make these changes and put
Yes,
them out to
we will.
everybody ahead of that meeting?
I
Right.
hope so.
July 2nd.
Yeah.
Not mine.
Jess, is it
Motion to
something you do
adjourn.
to book the room, or should I?
Yes, can I have a motion to adjourn if we're all...
Make a motion to
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait.
No.
Why don't you do it, because I have a lot on
Okay.
my plate and I'm afraid
All
I'll
right.
forget, so.
Okay.
Now, can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, but
No, you can't.
Wait.
You can't, the
I
one.
can't, I was just suggesting it.
the next meeting is 7, what?
2.
2. All right.
Tuesday. That's
Are you making
Tuesday.
a move to adjourn?
I can't really have a
I
social.
already made it.
Oh, David did? Okay. Did someone second it?
I will.
Okay.
Any
All 30.
any
Put
discussion?
my name on there.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
I